Hey everybody, so today I am here to share my top 10 pieces of advice for first-time breastfeeding moms and to give you guys a little bit of background in case you're new to my channel or my videos. My name's Alia. I have exclusively pumped with both of my daughters, about 2.5 years combined between both of those, and I'm also a certified breastfeeding specialist. And I just thought, what better way to wrap up World Breastfeeding Week than with a hopefully helpful video. And if you didn't know, World Breastfeeding Week is from August 1st through the 7th, and I don't know, I just remember being a first-time breastfeeder and it being completely different than my expectations. So I might have a little differing opinion than some of the stuff you normally hear, and just keep in mind this is my takeaway from breastfeeding. I just felt like I wanted to come on here and give you guys honest advice that I could if you are going to be breastfeeding for the first time to hopefully make your journey easier. Obviously this isn't going to cover everything, but if you're looking for more in-depth videos on exclusively pumping, I do have those, so I will try to link as much information as I can below. But enough with the intro, let's get into what this video is about. So the very first thing I would tell you right out of the gate is that look into some kind of breastfeeding class while you are expecting. While you're pregnant, figure it out. If there's a midwife, if there's a hospital, if there's anywhere near you that's offering a class, I highly recommend you take it. And if you're able to take your significant other with you, I've told this story a million times, people are probably sick of hearing it, but I took Mark, and personally I couldn't remember in the hospital how to put my breast pump together, and he remembered things about latching and different stuff to do with nursing that I hadn't remembered. So with both of you going, one might remember something helpful that the other one forgot, and it can really help. So I totally advocate for that. I know that obviously the classes cost money, so if you're not able to afford the classes, I definitely recommend researching it. Whether you have to use the internet, and if you don't have internet access, well, I don't know how you're watching this, but you know, if internet access is a problem for you, you know, even your local library carries the What to Expect When Expecting books. They touch on breastfeeding. They're not the best, but you definitely get some kind of idea there. It's just going to be beneficial beforehand, knowing the basics about whatever way you're planning on breastfeeding. And based off of whatever type of breastfeeding you're looking into, whether it's exclusively nursing, exclusively pumping, something that involves both of them, it's just nice to get the basics so you know what to expect and you know what you're able to do to move forward and hopefully start off on the best foot with your breastfeeding relationship. The next thing that I wanted to say was something that I had literally never had anybody tell me before, so it came as a shock to me, but it's the fact that even though breasts are biologically made to breastfeed, it doesn't mean it comes naturally to everybody. I had this idea that I would just nurse Sophie and it would just be butterflies and unicorns, and I quickly realized that there is so much more work that goes into it than just putting your kid to your boob. So there's a lot of things that go into it. A lot of people, I would say the majority of breastfeeding moms run into some kind of problem in some way, shape, or form at some point in their journey. So, you know, this idea that it's going to be smooth sailing, that it should just go perfectly for you, it's just not what is normal, what's average. Everybody has some kind of learning curve, I would say. So with that being said, it's gonna seem strange. You're gonna feel like you're not knowing what you're doing. You're gonna have a lot of questions, and that's why it's important to research before, and the point I'm gonna make after this. But just know, in the beginning stages of breastfeeding, you're definitely gonna be sore. It might even be a little uncomfortable for you. However, it should get better with time. And if it doesn't, that brings me to my next point. And that is to make sure you have a lactation consultant or an IBCLC on your side for when you run into problems. It is very important that you either know of one or you can easily access one if you haven't already picked one out and done any kind of courses. You know, like with my hospital, they offered those courses. It was taught by an IBCLC, so I was able to go to her when I did run into problems. If you give birth in a hospital, most hospitals have at least one person trained on lactation, so you should be able to request. And if you don't, if you're having trouble finding one, if you're newly postpartum and you're having trouble finding one, or if you are pregnant still and you're looking to find one near you to get the ball rolling ahead of time, I will leave a link down below so you can find an IBCLC near you. So use that tool. Do not be afraid to call. I remember the first time I ever felt like, I'm not sure if this is right. I feel like I should call, but I felt like I didn't want to bug her either. And it's the craziest thing. Don't be hesitant to call. They want to help you. With that being said, my next point is to trust your gut. If something feels like it's off, chances are it probably is. You know, everything from the outside and for short term can look like things are fine, but things could actually not be working right. You know, my personal experience with this was that I had several lactation consultants tell me that my latch looked great and everything, but I felt like it wasn't. Because I was in so much pain, and because for a short window of time before Sophie's reflux kicked in, among other things, and she wasn't having weight gain issues, it looked like everything was fine, but it most certainly did not feel fine to me. And knowing to trust your gut when something doesn't feel right, if something feels off, just go with it. Don't be afraid to get second, third, fourth opinions, because you are more than entitled to, first of all. And second of all, like I said, you just get this mom gut, and when it feels off, you need to check it out, because, you know, chances are it might be something, but even if it's not, it's good that you still kind of rule that out, and you're going to make yourself feel better. We are halfway through to number 5, and that brings us to know your rights and don't be afraid to exercise them. Now, with this portion, I can really only speak as an American. That's where I live in the United States, and that's the only experience I have. But I do know that there are other countries that also protect breastfeeding moms. So whether you're nursing in public or you're returning back to work and you're gonna have to pump and stuff like that, just know you do have rights and you are protected. So I'm going to have a link down below so you can find whatever specific state. And if people have links for other countries, I'd greatly appreciate that. I will pin that to the top of the comments if I do get somebody who can provide me with some reliable links to that. But as far as the United States go, now in all 50 states, you are protected to nurse in public. Before, there were a couple states that didn't protect moms from indecent exposure laws. However, now they have changed it. In all 50 states, you are protected. When it comes to the workplace, of course, it can vary from place to place. However, some places do have to abide by certain laws. And again, this is a state-by-state basis, but I'll have a link to that too so you can find what your state laws are about that. And if you're ever worried about trying to remember this, if you think you're going to run into a problem, I highly advise using the links below, finding your rights by your state, and printing those out and keeping a copy on you. And then you can kindly refresh anybody's memory who tries to give you grief. Don't let anybody bully you into something that you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable with nursing in public without a cover, don't worry about other people. Know your rights. Don't be afraid to exercise them. And if they have a problem with it, it's a matter of location and they can move because you're protected where you are. Number 6 is one of the most important things that I can offer you with advice. And that is breastfeeding, just like a lot of other aspects with motherhood, can make you feel pretty isolated. So with that being said, I encourage you and I urge you to find a community, whether that be an online Facebook group, if that's an in-person local meeting, whatever it is. It could be a girlfriend that you know who has breastfed in the past. You guys meet up every once in a while, have play dates. Or you could, like I said, find something online or do whatever you need to do to find a community of women who are going to stand behind you. Personally, to me, it sounded strange. I'm pretty much a loner when it comes to most parts of my life, and it felt kind of strange to really kind of interact with other people on the basis of one certain subject. But I didn't get it until I was there and I needed them. And I will say that the groups that I was in brought me through my toughest days of breastfeeding. You're just surrounded by people who have been there, who have done that, who are on the other side of it, and just can give you so much, like a wealth of information. They're supportive in ways because they understand where they are. You know, my husband is amazing and he's a great support system. He's like my number one supporter in my breastfeeding. However, he hasn't personally experienced it. You know, he can only offer me so much advice, or, you know, only relate to me so much. And there's just something about talking to somebody who's been there and done that. You know what I'm saying? So I really, really urge you to find a community, and I'm going to leave a link to my favorite Facebook group down below. It's called Breast Bottle and Beyond. I used to be an administrator over there. It's a great group. They've got great rules. It's very supportive. Just what that group is accomplishing is absolutely amazing. So if you're looking for a peaceful, non-judgmental, no crap given to each other kind of group that supports all types of breastfeeding, check it out. So that'll be down below, but it's just, I can't put into words what that group did for me and what other groups that I was a part of did for me, especially on my hard days. And you know, one day you'll be helping a newly breastfeeding mom. Number 7 is something that I had to learn in my journey with Remy, like a year plus in, and it was something really valuable that I try to keep with me in all parts of my life, but especially with breastfeeding, and that is to not make decisions on a hard day. I ran into a lot of complications in my breastfeeding journey with Remy, and a lot of those were very tempting, that while I was in the thick of it, to just wean, to be done, whatever, just quit. However, I was urged time and time again to just wait until I felt better to make that kind of concrete decision about whether or not to wean. And I was really glad, because a lot of the times I would wait and I'd get past it and I'd be like, actually, I want to keep doing this. I'm fine now. Like, that sucked. It really did suck, the things you can run into. They're hard, they're complicated, they're annoying. But when I was on the other side of them, I felt a lot better about continuing my breastfeeding journey. Like I mentioned before, everybody's gonna run into hard days. So that's why I've mentioned the community. Reach out and vent to somebody. Again, with that being said, it brings me to my next point, which is know your limits and don't be afraid to own them. If breastfeeding is affecting your mental and physical and emotional health, and you feel like you're better off weaning, wean. You do not need to owe anybody an explanation. You don't need to do something that you're uncomfortable with at this point. You don't need to do anything just because you have a certain expectation or you think others have a certain expectation. I don't think this is something that us parents do very well, but the saying, taking care of yourself is part of taking care of your kids, is true. So if it's running you down, if you feel like you would in all aspects be better off with weaning, that's what you need to do. Anybody who tries to give you grief over this doesn't have your best interest in mind. So knowing your limits and owning them and being confident in that, there's absolutely no shame in taking care of yourself. Number 9 is a less serious but definitely still useful piece of information, and that is to learn the breast milk storage guidelines, especially if you're a mom who's going to be leaving their baby in the care of others, so they're going to be expected to handle that. You definitely want to make sure whatever caretaker also understands the guidelines. You know, put it on the fridge, put it in the phones, put it freaking everywhere so people understand. You know, that stuff is liquid gold. You work very, very, very hard for it. So make sure that everybody understands the storage guidelines. Make sure yourself, you know, that was something that I didn't know going into breastfeeding. I had to look it up. It was something that I completely overlooked and obviously didn't think of. But I just wanted to put it out there because especially if you're going to have your kids in the care of other people, it's important that they understand as well. And with that being said, if you have spoiled milk, if you know, for whatever reason, storing it didn't work out, you can do milk baths. Even if it smells weird, it's not going to make your kid smell weird. And if you're unsure about how to give a milk bath, basically you want to give a bath the standard way you bathe your child, and then you want to run them some clean water, and then you pour enough breast milk in to make it cloudy. Let them sit in it for about 10-15 minutes and just dry them off. You don't have to rinse them or anything, I promise. I've used fresh milk, I've used refrigerated, frozen, spoiled, everything. I've put my kids in every single kind of milk bath that you can think of, and they've never came out smelling weird. Milk baths are great for eczema, for other skin conditions. It's great for cradle cap and just moisturizing their skin. I mean, milk baths have been around for a really, really long time. It's not just like a breast milk fad. But that brings me to my very last point, and that is, no matter how long you breastfed for, it's an accomplishment. No matter what way you feed breast milk, you are breastfeeding. You need to celebrate every little victory that you get with this. I've mentioned time and time again that you're gonna run into problems. It's not gonna feel the greatest. There's gonna be days where you just don't wanna keep doing it, and you might even come to the decision to wean, maybe before your expected goal. And to that, I have to say, just be happy with how far you've made it. It's not an easy thing for people to do. It's important to be proud of what you've done so far. Just because you don't go the extra however many days, weeks, or months to meet your goal doesn't neglect the fact that you've already spent X amount of time breastfeeding. That's amazing. You're doing a very, very difficult thing. You're nourishing your child from something you make with your own body. That is awesome. So no matter how long you breastfeed, whatever way you decide to breastfeed, because there are several different ways to do it, you need to be proud of it. You just do. And those are all the top 10 pieces of advice that I could give you guys when you are first-time breastfeeders. Now, I know that I didn't tell you how to make 120 ounces a day. I know that I didn't give you the cure for aching nipples. I know that I didn't, you know, I don't know, maybe give you some of the stuff that you were expecting, but I feel like that stuff you can very much find on the internet. People love talking about that stuff. I wanted to talk about maybe the more unpopular things, the things that were harder for me emotionally, the things that I didn't realize I'd be getting into with breastfeeding. I wanted to mention those. I wish someone had, and that's the entire premise of my channel. Just trying to put the things out there that I had never thought of, learned of, heard of, you know, whatever, in hopes of making someone else's journey a little bit easier. So with that being said, I want to encourage you guys to leave a comment down below. Leave some piece of advice for first-time breastfeeders. That way when they're scrolling through the comments, maybe they can get even a little bit more help. Like I mentioned in that one bit, if anybody has credible, useful links to countries' other laws and regulations, please leave that so I can pin it. I hope you mamas all over the world had a great World Breastfeeding Week, and congratulations if you are a breastfeeder and you've been doing amazing, or if you're going through hard times, know that they're not going to last long. You'll get through it. If you're looking for a link to something, also check the drop box. We have a ton of information in there. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.